Let's turn to the play and Inspector Calls and think about the male stereotype that is evident there as it is shown in the character of Mr. Burling. There he is. Okay, Mr. Burling standing or sitting at the head of the table, pontificating, spouting not exactly nonsense, but misinformed information, and dominating and presenting himself in a certain way towards his daughter, his wife, his servant, the female servant, and then particularly towards the three males in whom he comes into contact in the course of the play: his son, his daughter's boyfriend, and the inspector. The inspector, who is like the voice of conscience, is something that comes frequently throughout the play. I would guess you have to say it's one of the main points of the whole play. So how do we deconstruct the male stereotype from this play? Let me show you a typical exam question here, just to put your mind into gear here. How does Priestley use Mr. Burling to explore male attitudes towards women in an Inspector Calls? It's a 30-mark question, but so that means they're looking for a kind of four-side essay answer. And how Mr. Burling is presented during the play, what some of these attitudes towards women are. So I've given you three to start with. The main one, of course, is the tragic heroine of the play. But there are other ones as well: the way he treats his daughter, the way he treats his wife, the way he treats his servant. And these all present a certain kind of picture. How would you think of him? How would you think of him sitting at the table? What adjectives would you? Tell you what, give yourself a minute and think of 5 adjectives, okay? Let me see if I can do it. I'm looking at him at the table, okay? He's pompous. He's a bit bullying. He is self-centered. He is controlling. He likes to be the number one. He likes people to pay him attention. Is that all of him? Is that through to his core? I think he's probably insecure, isn't he? He's probably noting the idea that he's come up from working class, or at least middle class, and he has aspirations to reach higher. Basically, he's been in trade. He's made a great success of being in trade, and now he wants to anticipate a happy retirement, maybe be knighted, make his millions, sit back in his barn with all his worldly goods. And then from this position, which is basically where the play starts, he is using his daughter as a ticket into personal future success. So he's using her as a commodity. So how is he presented? Well, what do you think? Do you agree? Would you like to add some more? Do you think he's been misrepresented? So we have to look at the play and just think about how those attitudes that I've just suggested, how they play out, how they come. Okay, so this is from the Bite-Size resource, which is very good. Okay, how Burling refers to women. He has a patronizing, yes, that's one word we didn't get, isn't it? Patronizing, making the suggestion about the clothes. It's like when we tell jokes about women buying shoes, or the adjectives that we use about the women in our life, or partners, girlfriends, wives. How do we handle that relationship? And so it's suggested here that he's not looking them as individuals, but as a species, or as a different species. Make them look prettier. Well, sort of token of their self-respect, thinking about the way women clothe themselves. Why do women dress themselves? Well, to make them attractive to men. You know, that's the sort of stereotype. And then we have Gerald playing into this picture, making sexist and superficial comments about the women in the bar he visits. I hate those hard-eyed, dough-faced women. It's the same. It's the same. Women as a category. As a category, all women are like this. And if you don't meet these high standards, then you've no business coming into my life. So it's patronizing. And then when you get to Mrs. Burling, you can also see she can be just as cruel and old-fashioned as the men are. She doesn't try to empathize with a member of her own gender, and she instructs her own daughter to behave in a certain way when she gets married. So there are wider gender issues. And into this comes Eva Smith. And Eva Smith is a picture of basically a 1945 girl transported back into 1912, sort of, but she's independent and she fights for her rights. You think of the women in 1912 who were fighting for their rights, like the suffragettes, fighting for the vote, fighting for pay, fighting for opportunities, fighting for some sense of entitlement. There wasn't even a glass ceiling. it was a completely different set of circumstances. But Eva Smith, and of course the name Smith means ordinary, but the word Eva suggests the first of her kind, Eve. She's the Eve. And Burling puts her down, claiming that they couldn't even organize a proper strike, making these comments about how they love clothes. And Mrs. Burling is playing into this stereotype, fulfilling her role from her own perspective, thinking it's right, that her duty is to prop up this patriarchy. And she turns against Eva Smith because Eva Smith's going to be a single mother. So Mrs. Burling is allowed to assume a position of virtue and cleanness from which she can look down to somebody less fortunate than ourselves, which is a patronizing way of approaching a serious issue, isn't it? So I guess what we have to say is that by the end of the play, Priestley would have hoped that the audience would have questioned this view of stereotypical gender roles, or at least thought about it. And of course, the space between 1912, when the play is set, 1945, when the play was actually written, constituted a massive revolution in the role of women in British society because of the two world wars, because of women taking an active role in industry, in the factories, in textile production, and also in the military and in the paramilitary organizations. So they were much, I mean, it's only 30 odd years, isn't it? 30 years. And there's this revolution in the place of women. And the play is inviting you to think through that change and also to look into the future, because, of course, this is like a morality play, speaking about the morality of a society. And this is only one aspect of it. But Priestley wants us to question that stereotype. And it's evidenced most strongly in Mr. Burling. He's the symbol. He's the symbol of traditional patriarchy and sexist values. He sits here at the head of the table. He's in control. He is enjoying the fruits of his labors. He expects to be unchallenged in everything he says. And he's emulating the dominance that men had in 1912. He treats women in a condescending and a disrespectful manner, even with his own daughter. And Priestley shows that Mr. Burling's misogyny blinds him to the cruelty of his actions towards Eva Smith because he doesn't quite see her as a human of equal worth. Well, she's poor. Well, she's unconnected. She's working class. Well, she's a woman. So these are almost like strikes against her. And just as he is welcoming Gerald into the family because he can see financial gain from that association, he is dismissing Eva Smith from any connection with him because she lacks those advantages. Men as equals. Priestley demonstrates how Mr. Burling prioritizes the interests of his fellow men over the interests of the female characters because he only sees men as equals. And in the opening scene, this celebratory toast, Mr. Burling addresses Gerald rather than Sheila. Remember that the idea of this dinner party is the engagement between Gerald and Sheila. And so Burling wants to reply. He wants to take control of the situation, but he speaks to Gerald rather than to Gerald and Sheila. And that implies he cares more about Gerald's happiness than his daughter's, or maybe that he's more comfortable talking to Gerald as his peer. He says, your engagement to Sheila means a tremendous lot to me. She'll make you happy, and I'm sure you'll make her happy. So what do you think of that statement? You're engaged. So this is something that men do. Men take the main role. You've taken my daughter. It means a lot to me. She'll make you happy. Notice the order there. That's the most obvious thing. Okay, you'll make her happy. Yeah, but first, let's get your priorities right. She'll make you happy. She will satisfy you. She will complete you. And as far as I'm concerned, Gerald, you bring a lot to this. It means a tremendous lot to me because I'm on the road to a knighthood. And once our companies merge, then we will make a lot of money. That's just by the way. Of course, we're here to celebrate the engagement, and she'll make you happy. She will. Well, you'll make her happy too. So there's a very subtle blend of different areas of selfishness, isn't there? And it's all coming together. So as well as ignoring his daughter, he makes her engagement all about himself, which suggests he has ownership over his actions and successes. And this is narcissistic, a self-obsession. You look into the lake of life and you only see your own reflection. It's all about me. It's as if, and many people do this, I guess all of us in a way, we walk our way through life as if we're going through a sitcom and we are the hero of the sitcom, and other people come in, little bit parts, and they react and act with us, and then we smile, but we are the continuing character and they come and go. And that's something of the flavor of Burling's narcissism here, this self-obsession. But this stereotype is part of the same story, this male patriarchal figure. She'll make you happy. It even suggests this, that the wife's only duty is to please her husband, to satisfy him. It's like Sheila is a gift that he's giving to Gerald. And because he references Gerald's happiness before Sheila's, Priestley is perhaps suggesting that Mr. Burling is only concerned with pleasing Gerald. He doesn't think that their relationship will be mutual or equal, that they're going to be yoked partners, but they're not equal partners because the man is the boss. And that's it. And then comes a new factor into this relationship, which between Gerald and Sheila, which hasn't started yet. You know, the engagement is about to be announced. Okay. But in the course of the evening, as you know, it is revealed that Gerald has had an affair. There's a little hint. I wondered why you didn't visit for a while. You know, there was a little estrangement between us. I wonder what happened during that period. And then it comes out that he had been having a very serious relationship with another woman. So what about this question about their relationship, Mr. Burling? How do you feel about your daughter now that it's revealed that your putative son-in-law has been unfaithful to her, that hasn't even been able to court her with integrity? What do you think about that? Well, he learns about Gerald's affair, and there is not strongly, not definitely, but gently and insistently, the sense that he sides with Gerald. Well, you know what men are like. He doesn't seem to care that his daughter has been hurt, as the engagement is the most important thing to consider. This is business. This is my future. This is my happiness and content. That's the whole ethos of that opening scene, isn't it? Mr. Burling is the man. He's the man. And it's also suggested that he doesn't think a woman should have the right to object to a man's desires. He said, I'm not defending him. I'm not defending him. He's been very, very naughty. Naughty Gerald. But you must understand that a lot of young men, and then it proceeds on, so these quotes perpetuate the idea that a woman's role is to tolerate their husband's mistreatment of them rather than standing up for themselves. So on the one hand, you have Eva Smith, who is going to be really dismissed from society before she killed herself. Dismissed from society. She is a shameless hussy. She's with child. It's disgusting. Not only is she poor and working class and hasn't even organized a strike properly. Oh, she's got no idea. But she just flirts with men, sleeps with them. She's banged a child. She's disgusting. So they can dismiss that. But when Gerald is revealed that his part in this is, well, let's just say equally culpable, but I don't believe that's the case, but that he is the predator in this situation. Well, you know what men are like. You know what men are like. And this is the male stereotype that in the play is being deconstructed, or at least challenged. Is that fair? Is that good? Is that honorable? Is that the way that humans live together? And so the Burling's reference to a lot of young men shows how society believed that men had an uncontrollable sex drive, and so men's infidelity was an accepted part of culture. Well, you know what men are like. So let's leave it at that point, and I think that's enough material to answer that question. All we've done really is just base it upon the opening scene, drawn in a few moments from later in the play. We see how Burling, in the course of the play, is not really shaken from his role as father of the family, boss. He's not really shaken out of his complacency. It's still there. And this reminds you that a stereotype, that word means an entrenched worldview. It means something that is rooted in our system. And we really need a total change, a metanoia of mental processing in order to move forward. And that, of course, is what the play suggests is necessary. Okay, see you in the next session.